After years of my stepdaughter's constant disrespect, I finally lost my patience and told her to go ask her biological father for money. Now, my wife insists I went too far. Hi, Reddit, posting here because I need some perspective. When people talk about blended families, they like to wrap it in nice words. They'll say things like bonus parents or extra love. What they don't mention is the quiet dinners, the slammed doors, and the resentment that builds up over time. I've lived in that silence for 12 years. I met Mara when I was 31. She was 28 then, raising her little girl alone after leaving her ex, Rick. He wasn't abusive, but he chipped away at her self-worth with constant manipulation and broken promises. Despite all that, Mara still had this light about her. She laughed easily, and it drew me in instantly. The little girl clutching her leg was Tessa, just 4 years old. When I first met Tessa, she wouldn't even look at me. Mara bent down and said, "Sweetheart, this is David. He's my friend." I crouched, smiled, and said, "Hi, Tessa." She only held tighter to Mara's leg, her eyes wary. In that moment, I realized that winning Mara's heart meant I'd also have to earn her daughter's trust. The years went by. Some things changed, others didn't. Mara and I got married when Tessa was 6. She wore a flower crown at the wedding, but refused to smile in pictures with me. Mara called it shyness. I tried to believe her. By 8, our son Caleb was born, an easy baby, and Tessa adored him. That love for her little brother was the one thing we shared. She'd sit beside me while I rocked him, but she rarely spoke to me. Once, I asked if she wanted to hold him. She shrugged. "Mom said I can." When I placed Caleb in her arms, her face lit up for just a moment. She kissed his forehead, whispered something to him, then handed him back, still without looking at me. That's how it always was. I was present, but invisible. I paid for everything: school trips, piano lessons, volleyball uniforms. I drove her to games, cheered from the stands. But she never cheered for me. By the time she was 16, Tessa had mastered dismissiveness. Conversations were reduced to single words. "How was school?" "Fine." "Hungry?" "No." "Need a ride?" Whatever. Her phone became her lifeline. She started sneaking out, coming back smelling like alcohol. When I grounded her, she only pushed back harder, slamming doors until the walls shook. "David," Mara would whisper, laying a hand on my arm. She doesn't mean it. She's just a teenager. But to me, it always felt personal. One Friday night, I knocked on her door while she was texting furiously. "Tessa," phone check. Her response was instant. "No." I opened the door. I wasn't asking. She rolled her eyes, shoved the phone under her pillow. "You're not my dad. Stop acting like you can tell me what to do." Her words cut deep. "Just screw off," she shouted, standing now. "I'm sick of you pretending you're my dad. You're not. You never will be." She stormed out, slamming the bathroom door, so hard a picture frame fell from the wall. I stood there, fists clenched, years of patience collapsing. 2 days later, over breakfast, she asked casually, "Can you buy me a plane ticket? I want to visit Josh in Indiana." Josh was the boyfriend she'd been texting at 2 a.m. Normally, I'd have said yes. Mara doesn't work, and Rick never pays child support. But something inside me broke. "Go ask your real dad," I said coldly. The table went silent. Tessa froze, fork halfway up, her face twisted, her eyes glassy, but she didn't cry. Instead, she shoved her chair back and walked upstairs without a word. Mara stared at me, horrified. "David, you didn't." "I did. I admitted. That was cruel." "Cruel?" I snapped. "Cruel is being treated like a nobody for 12 years while I've paid for everything. Cruel is being reminded daily that I'm not enough." Her voice softened, but hit harder than a scream. "She's a child, David. You're supposed to be the adult." That night, I sat in silence, thinking of all the games where Rick never showed, of the birthdays he forgot while she cried. And still, somehow, I was the bad guy? Was I wrong? Maybe, but the guilt weighed heavy. The next night, I knocked on her door. "Tess, can we talk?" "Go away." came her muffled reply. I stepped inside. She was curled up on her bed, face buried in a pillow. I sat gently on the edge. I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have said that. I know I'm not your biological dad, but I've always thought of you as my daughter. I love you, even when it feels like you hate me. She slowly lifted her head, her cheeks streaked with tears. Then why doesn't he, she whispered, why doesn't he love me? My heart shattered. I pulled her close, and for the first time, she didn't resist. She sobbed into my chest, trembling. What's wrong with me? Nothing, I whispered fiercely. Absolutely nothing. His failures are not your fault. You've always been enough. That night, I promised not to check her phone anymore, but I told her we'd find other boundaries. I also suggested therapy. She resisted at first, but eventually agreed. 2 weeks later, I drove her home from her second session. She was quiet the whole ride. When we pulled into the driveway, she paused and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." It was the first time she'd ever called me that. My chest ached, not from pain this time, but something close to hope. Things aren't perfect now. She still rolls her eyes, still gets moody, but sometimes she laughs. Sometimes she talks. She hasn't broken curfew in weeks. And every so often, she calls me Dad. It's fragile, but it's real. For the first time in 12 years, I feel like we're building something. Something worth every slammed door, every sleepless night, every moment I almost gave up, because being a parent isn't about blood. It's about showing up even when you're not wanted. And maybe, finally, she sees I'm not going anywhere. For a while, I let myself believe things were improving. Therapy seemed to help. She even sat on the floor with Caleb once, helping him build a Lego castle. Mara looked at me with teary eyes and mouthed, "See? She's changing." And maybe she was. But deep down, I learned not to trust fragile peace. It started subtly. One Saturday, Tessa walked into the kitchen while I was having coffee. She hesitated, twisting her hair. "Hey, Dad," she said softly, testing the word. I raised an eyebrow. "What's up?" "So, the volleyball team is going to summer tournament out of state. Mom thought maybe you could cover the fee. A year ago, I would have said yes instantly, but something in me hesitated. I'd noticed a careful sweetness she only used when she wanted something. "Let me think about it," I replied. Her face dropped. "Think about it? You always pay for my stuff." "That doesn't mean I always will." I said evenly. "Respect can't be conditional." She scowled, muttered under her breath, and stormed off. That night, Mara confronted me. "David, what's going on? Why not just agree to pay?" "Because I'm tired of being treated like an ATM. If she wants my support, she needs to respect me all the time, not just when she wants money." "She's 16, Mara argued. "Teenagers don't always show gratitude, but it doesn't mean she doesn't care. She's old enough to know better," I said firmly. "If she can adjust her tone when she wants something, she knows exactly what she's doing." "You're being harsh. You're supposed to be the adult." "And I am," I replied, "an adult who's finally setting boundaries." A week later, it escalated. I came home to find Mara and Tessa waiting at the kitchen table. "Dad," Tessa began almost too sweetly, "I know I've messed up, but I've been trying, right, Mom?" Mara nodded. "She has David." "So," Tessa continued, "there's this summer arts program. It would look amazing on college applications. And it's expensive," I said slowly. "How expensive?" She slid a brochure over. "Nearly $3,000. I looked at both of them. "So you planned this together, waiting for me like I'm just a checkbook." "It's not like that," Mara insisted. "It feels exactly like that." Tessa's eyes filled with practiced tears. "I knew you wouldn't care. You've never cared. You just pretend so you can look like the hero." The words echoed ones Mara once told me Rick had used. Manipulation disguised as wounded innocence. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't take the bait. I slid the brochure back. "If this matters, maybe your real dad can help. Or maybe you can fundraise. But don't expect me to just hand over money. David, she's a child." Mara snapped. "You're supposed to support her dreams." No, I said firmly. I'm supposed to support this family. And I have financially, emotionally, endlessly. But I won't be manipulated anymore. Not by her. Not by you. The silence was heavy. Tessa shoved her chair back and stormed upstairs. Mara stared at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. Who are you anymore? She whispered. I exhaled. Someone who's finally had enough. I grabbed my jacket and walked outside. For the first time in years, I breathed without feeling crushed by obligation. I didn't leave for good. Not yet. Caleb still needed me. But I stopped saying yes to everything. I stopped bending over backwards. And as I pulled away, things became clearer. The fake tears, the guilt trips, the way Mara excused Tessa instead of holding her accountable. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't crazy. I was just done. Maybe one day Tessa will see who I really was. The man who stayed when her father didn't. Or maybe she won't. But either way, I'll know I finally stood my ground. Because love isn't always about endless sacrifice. Sometimes it's about knowing when to stop